Tonight at 10, the EU tries to break the deadlock on the long-running Brexit dispute involving Northern Ireland. It's proposed that in future, most food products arriving in Northern Ireland from England, Scotland and Wales will not need to be checked.
We have completely turned our rules upside down and inside out to find a solid solution to an outstanding challenge.
But for some businesses in Northern Ireland, the dispute between the UK and the EU has gone unresolved for too long.
GB companies that are supplying smaller quantities to Northern Ireland are simply saying, why should I bother? It's too difficult, it's too cumbersome.
We'll be asking what happens if, as seems likely, the UK government says it's not enough. Also tonight, toy retailers and other businesses are warning that delays at UK ports will result in shortages this Christmas. A lack of care staff in the community is causing major problems for hospitals, with elderly patients unable to be discharged.
And capsule touchdown.
And a safe return to Earth for William Shatner, alias Captain Kirk, the oldest person ever to visit space.
And coming up in the sport on the BBC News channel, Chelsea are away to Juventus as they look to pick up their first win in this season's Women's Champions League.
Good evening. The European Union has tried to break the deadlock on the long-running Brexit dispute involving Northern Ireland. It says the new plan would halve the customs paperwork needed. Now, this dispute is all about the Northern Ireland Protocol, which was agreed and signed by the UK and the EU and came into force at the start of this year. Among other things, the protocol requires extra checks and paperwork on products such as food and drink, which are imported from Britain. Now, because Northern Ireland is still in the EU single market for goods, there are no border checkpoints between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. That's a crucial factor to avoid a return to the tensions and troubles of the past. And the result is a trade border which falls between Britain and Northern Ireland, which unionists say undermines Northern Ireland's place in the UK. Adding to the tensions, the UK government now wants to reverse its previous agreement on the role of the European Court of Justice. Our Ireland correspondent Emma Vardy has the latest on the search for a compromise.
Could this be the light at the end of the tunnel for businesses? Bringing goods into Northern Ireland from Great Britain has become much more difficult under the Brexit arrangements.
If we went back to 2020 for a consignment of goods, that's the paperwork that we had to produce.
Right.
Under the protocol in 2021, this is the paperwork for 4 or 5 pallets.
And there could be multiple loads of this on one lorry. The UK government argues the difficulties have become so serious that it doesn't just want changes to the protocol, but a whole new treaty.
We're seeing fewer, if anybody, wanting to begin moving goods between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. GB companies that are supplying smaller quantities to Northern Ireland are simply saying, why should I bother?
God, what a year.
M&S says it won't be sending some Christmas products over the Irish Sea because of the red tape. And there's due to be a ban on the British banger being brought into Northern Ireland, as chilled meats can't be imported under the current rules. But the EU's now offering to ease these problems with a unique agreement to reduce checks on food and drink products moving over the Irish Sea, an arrangement to allow the sale of chilled meats to continue, and the EU said it will change its laws to solve problems which pose a threat to the supply of medicines in Northern Ireland.
With this robust package of practical, imaginative solutions, we can continue to implement the protocol on Ireland, Northern Ireland, for the benefit of all communities on the ground.
But this is an ideological battle too. Loyalist communities view any border in the Irish Sea as severing Northern Ireland's link with the UK, integral to unionist identity here.
If we do not kill this protocol, it will kill the union.
For the most staunch unionists, the EU's proposals don't go far enough.
They still fall far short of what is needed to make the fundamental change that is required. But we recognise there's a negotiating process that will happen now.
It's threatening the fragile power-sharing government here. Sinn Féin says the UK should implement the deal it already agreed.
It's our view that the protocol guarantees protections for the Good Friday Agreement, the all-island economy, and it ensures that there is no border imposed on the island of Ireland.
Because of the tensions, the UK's Brexit minister says without a significant shift from the EU, the stability of Northern Ireland is at stake.
It's clear that the protocol as it's being implemented in Northern Ireland is not being implemented with the necessary sensitivity. We have to come back to these arrangements again if they don't enjoy consent across Northern Ireland.
The UK government's also called for an end to the role of the European Court of Justice in the arrangements. But political leaders in the Republic of Ireland say the demands are an act of bad faith.
This is a country that makes treaties, that strikes agreements and then intends to renege on them. And that message must now resonate around the world. Don't make any agreement with the British government. Don't sign any treaty with the United Kingdom until you can be confident that this is a country that can honour its promises.
Without a resolution, the UK could trigger a clause to override part of the Brexit deal, sparking a potential trade war with Northern Ireland caught in the middle. Emma Vardy, BBC News.
Let's go live to Berlin and talk to our Europe editor, Katja Adler, for some reaction there. Katja, if as seems likely, the UK government says that this latest offer is not enough, what happens next?
Well, first, Huw, we really have to let the two sides get together, get their competing versions of the future of the protocol together and see if they can find common ground. Today, they were in London. At the end of the week, they'll be meeting in Brussels. The EU says that it feels that the raft of measures it proposed today go a long way to allaying UK concerns about the protocol. But absolutely, Huw, very big stumbling blocks remain. What will be the role of the European Court of Justice? The two sides can't decide on that. If ultimately this new round of talks dissolves quickly, David Frost says he is ready to trigger Article 16 of the protocol. That would basically suspend parts of the protocol to protect peace in Northern Ireland, he says, whereas the EU says that kind of action could threaten the stability of Northern Ireland. Even before this new round of talks, you have countries like Germany who've asked the European Commission to prepare a range of possible retaliatory measures against the UK if Article 16 is triggered. That fuels talks of a possible trade war, or these are hard-nosed negotiating tactics right from the beginning.
Katja, many thanks again. Katja Adler, our Europe editor there in Berlin. One of the UK's biggest toy retailers and other businesses are warning that delays at UK ports will result in shortages this Christmas. With thousands of containers stuck at ports, including Felixstowe, and a serious shortage of HGV lorry drivers, there's widespread concern in the business community about future stocks. Our transport correspondent, Caroline Davis, has the latest.
Coming in but going out too slowly. Felixstowe is the busiest container port in the UK, bringing in goods from around the world. But for months, the situation at ports here and internationally has been getting worse as demand for goods grows after the pandemic. The situation is caused by a messy mix of global problems, including COVID disruption. But here in the UK, it's made worse by a shortage of HGV drivers to take the goods away. And so they build up. There are around 100,000 containers here. The port normally has around 60 to 70,000 on average. They aren't the only port in this position.
Well, this is a global issue, so it's happening in ports around the world, and it's obviously happening in all the container ports around the UK because of the volume of traffic of containers, of particularly imports at the moment, which are coming into the UK as we come out of lockdown.
As well as taking time to get goods to the right place, the cost of shipping goods is also going up.
The freight rates have gone up massively. I mean, 2 years ago, you paid about $3,000 for a 40-foot from Shanghai to Felixstowe. This month, it's between $19,000 and $20,000. So as you can see, they've gone up sixfold.
And that has a knock-on effect in our shops, including on the price and availability of toys coming in before Christmas.
At this point in time, it is while stocks last. If you see it, I would be buying it. I'd be looking at it rather than looking for it, because I have no doubt that come December there are going to be a lot of disappointed shoppers looking for items that just cannot be got.
The government has reassured shoppers that they should shop normally this Christmas and has said that while global capacity regularly fluctuates, it's continuing to work with the freight industry to tackle the challenges at ports. The supply chain is stuck in a snarl-up and it could take months to unpick. Caroline Davis, BBC News.
As Caroline was saying, problems with supply chains are not just affecting the UK. France's finance minister, speaking at a meeting of the International Monetary Fund in Washington earlier today, said that there were shortages everywhere, with the suppliers struggling to cope with the rise in consumer demand as countries emerge from the pandemic. From Washington, our economics editor Faisal Islam sent this report.
One of the world's biggest parking lots. Dozens of cargo ships just waiting in the Pacific, full of goods from Asia, unable to dock at full terminals in the ports of California with containers piled high. The same now happening on the Atlantic coast off Georgia too, and in other ports around the world. The plumbing of the world economy not functioning properly. At the White House today, President Biden summoned US business bosses to work 24/7 to clear the backlogs.
This is across-the-board commitment to going to 24/7. This is a big first step in speeding up the movement of materials and goods through our supply chain.
The actions of the president show that this is a supply chain crisis that affects many countries across the world. It arises out of the fact that after the pandemic, demand rebounded much faster than expected and much faster than the ability of the world economy to supply the goods required. That's led to shortages, it's led to price rises, and that's not going to be solved before Christmas. In fields and airfields around the USA, there are tens of thousands of nearly finished cars and trucks, but they can't be sold because they lack the crucial microchips, the orders for which were cancelled at the start of the pandemic. The companies were too pessimistic about the rebound in demand. That's led to a change of view from the bank chief who earlier this year predicted an unprecedented British boom.
We did predict a booming recovery in the economy. I think what we missed was it would be so strong that it would create these supply chain problems, whether it's gasoline, whether it's chips, whatever it is.
Because of pandemic restrictions, finance ministers attending international meetings are spilling out onto the streets and parks of Washington, D.C. One solution to all of this, producing more locally.
To reduce the dependence of France and all European countries to key technologies, to chips, to semiconductors, to all the products on which there are bottlenecks and shortages today.
And that could lead to higher prices permanently, alongside other factors from US-China tensions, post-Brexit visa restrictions, or fears over UK-EU trade.
Are you worried about a trade war with the UK over Northern Ireland?
Germany's most likely new Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, wouldn't be drawn on that. But there are fears in Germany of a parts shortage causing a bottleneck recession. It's a global economic challenge and it's not going away. Faisal Islam, BBC News, in Washington, D.C.
Two more energy suppliers have collapsed as a result of the soaring cost of gas. Total of 250,000 customers of Pure Planet and Colorado Energy will be switched to a new supplier chosen by the regulator Ofgem. In Norway, a man has killed several people and injured others after using a bow and arrow to attack them. Police cordoned off large parts of the town of Kongsberg, southwest of the capital Oslo, after the incident this evening. Police say the suspect has been caught and appears to have acted alone. Let's have a look at the latest official coronavirus figures in the UK. They show that there were 42,776 new infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period, and that is the highest number since the middle of July. The average number of cases per day in the past week now stands at 39,073. More than 7,000 people were in hospital with COVID yesterday. Another 136 deaths have been recorded of people who died within 28 days of a positive test, which means on average there were 113 deaths per day in the past week. On the vaccination front, 85.6% of the population aged 12 and over have had their first dose of a vaccine, and 78.7% have been double vaccinated. A shortage of care staff in the community is causing major problems for hospitals. NHS leaders in England are concerned about the number of elderly and vulnerable patients who are stuck in hospital because of a lack of support at home and in care homes. And currently there's a shortfall of more than 112,000 people working in care. And chief executives are describing the situation as dire. Our social affairs editor Alison Holt has more details.
It's another extremely busy day for home care manager Vicky and care supervisor Charlotte. Both are normally based in the office, but staff shortages mean they're out caring for people to cover gaps in the rota. That meant just 5 hours sleep for Vicky last night.
I have to keep going on with it. Until I can recruit again, until we can get more people through the door to support. It's not an option not to.
The bandages were too tight, but they're all right now.
They're here to help 103-year-old Margaret with her lunch and personal care. She recently returned from hospital.
I'm glad to be home, oh definitely, after 4 weeks away.
But the shortage of care staff is making it increasingly difficult to get people out of hospital.
But you have packed up a lot.
Comments from hospital chief executives show the huge pressure this is already causing in England. There are a record number of people waiting for care, says one. We've just tipped over the point where delayed discharges are a bigger problem than COVID, says another. And a chief executive whose hospital has 140 patients waiting to be sent home says patients are dying in hospital when their choice was home, hospice or nursing home due to lack of care staff.
We're incredibly concerned about the coming winter. We know that hospitals, mental health trusts, ambulance services, all under huge pressure. And we know that that pressure is linked to social care, who desperately need the support in order to expand their capacity.
Hiya, Carol.
Tracy is a nurse and manager at this Sheffield care home. They too are struggling to find care workers, with staff exhaustion, compulsory vaccinations and better pay in other sectors all adding to the problems.
So those are all from a recruitment agency?
These are all from recruitment, yeah. And it's not just one job, there's 2 or 3 jobs hidden behind it.
But she is also being bombarded by job offers as other companies try to poach her.
You're getting emails, you're getting text messages from companies that I've never even heard of.
What do you think of that?
I've got a job. I'm looking after people to the best of my ability.
Right, we need 3 carers.
And when they bring in agency staff to cover the gaps, they sometimes pay more in a day than the council pays them in a week for a resident's care.
I think we shouldn't be in this position, but I think social care, you know, it's an integral part of the healthcare system with the NHS. But again, it doesn't feel as though we've had the support that's necessary. And I think, it could potentially be bleak times ahead.
The government says it has put extra money into social care and that it's running regular recruitment campaigns. Alison Holt, BBC News.
Nearly a third of the UK's gas supply comes from Norway, and soaring prices have exposed Europe's dependence on fossil fuels. But with the Arctic Circle now warming at twice the rate of the global average, Norwegian activists are taking their government to the European Court to try to prevent more drilling. But Norway's government today announced a new round of contracts to explore its oil reserves. As world leaders prepare for the COP26 Global Climate Summit in just over 2 weeks, our Europe correspondent Nick Beak travelled to the far north of Norway to find out more.
Beside the fjords of northernmost Norway, they formed their own Arctic Circle of solidarity. Climate change campaigners have travelled from across the country and set up camp to try to stop the opening of a cobalt mine. They say it would do yet more damage to an environment already under severe threat. Ella Maria Hette Isaksson is one of Norway's biggest young stars, a winner of their X Factor style competition.
The climate crisis is definitely here, and it has started, and it is dramatic already.
She's one of 6 young Norwegians taking her government to the European Court of Human Rights, arguing that plans to drill for more oil is depriving them of their future.
I really do believe that Norway has a big part of the responsibility to solve the climate crisis, because we have been such a big oil producer.
Scientists say these are already the scars of climate change in Norway. Hotter conditions have attracted moths, which decimate trees in their path.
We don't want this fish in the river. This is
And warmer rivers mean pink or humpback salmon are thriving where they shouldn't be. They often carry disease and are a threat to the native Atlantic salmon that so many of us eat. Other changes are even more striking. They call these the Norwegian Alps. But the ice here in Lyngen municipality is melting, contributing to rising sea levels. In 1998, the glacier reached all the way back to here. But in just 4 years, it had retracted to where I'm standing now. And in the years that followed, the ice continued to melt. And you can see what's happened. So much has been lost in just 23 years. A landscape redrawn. Norway is a country of contradictions. Most cars sold here are electric. The vast majority of domestic energy used is renewable. Yet it continues to produce billions of barrels of oil as well as gas, fossil fuels blamed for damaging the planet. But not all young Norwegians have the same outlook. Electrician Kim and his family rely on oil production for their livelihoods. He works on a rig, and if drilling stopped, he'd fear for their future.
Probably my children is also going to work at the same place as I do. It's very important. We don't have any other place to work.
So if jobs were lost and companies were to close, what would that mean for you and your family, your community?
It will be a ghost city with no industry and nothing.
This new generation of climate activists will have to convince a new Norwegian government to give up the addiction to oil. And any European court ruling could be years away. So the campaigners say they'll keep on appealing to the world's conscience to protect the planet and their future. Nick Beak, BBC News, Norway.
The Information Commissioner's Office, the body that regulates data privacy in the UK, has asked the Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen to provide documents to support her allegations that the social media platform harms children's mental health. Facebook firmly denies the claims, but the Information Commissioner, Elizabeth Denham, wants to see if the company has breached UK law. And she's been talking to our media editor, Amal Rajan.
She's the former Facebook employee turned whistleblower whose revelations are reverberating around the world. Earlier this month, Frances Haugen handed over internal company documents to US lawmakers, which she claimed were evidence that the trillion-dollar company harms children's mental health, stokes division, and puts profits before people.
The company intentionally hides vital information from the public, from the US government, and from governments around the world.
The Information Commissioner has just introduced a children's code, legally requiring companies to design sites to protect children. And Frances Haugen's revelations have piqued her interest.
So we're looking at that publicly available information, but I've also written to her today to ask her for access to the full reports of her allegations, because what I want to do with that evidence is analyze it from the UK's perspective. Are these harms applicable in the UK, especially through the lens of children? And I want to see if these allegations point to any contravention of UK law, and then I will take action.
In a statement on his Facebook page, Mark Zuckerberg said of the allegations by his former employee, "Most of us just don't recognise the false picture of the company that is being painted." He went on to say, "At the heart of these accusations is this idea that we prioritise profit over safety and well-being. That's just not true." It's been an intense 5 years for the Information Commissioner, who regulates breaches of data privacy, such as that with Cambridge Analytica. She steps down in a few weeks, but has big concerns about the mismatch between her budget and those of the tech giants. She's also worried about the government's plans to reform her office.
An independent regulator is really important to trust and confidence. My work on data and political campaigns would have been almost impossible to do if I had to take my marching orders from government.
Regulators regulate. But if there is to be a new settlement between the tech giants and modern democracy, it's ultimately up to elected officials to turn years of chatter into action. Amol Rajan, BBC News.
The actor William Shatner has made history today as the oldest person to go into space. The 90-year-old went on a 10-minute flight on board the Blue Origin rocket, built by a company owned by the Amazon billionaire Jeff Bezos. The man familiar to millions as Captain Kirk of Star Trek returned safely to Earth, describing his trip as a most profound experience. From Texas, our correspondent Sophie Long sent this report.
As the sun rose over one of the most desolate parts of the Wild West, William Shatner made his way to the New Shepard fully automated spacecraft.
William Shatner?
Not leading the crew his alter ego commanded, but with 3 other passengers who would share this life-changing experience.
2, 1.
More than 50 years after he first donned a spacesuit as Captain Kirk, William Shatner is now on his way to the final frontier.
And there they are, over 328,000 feet, over 100 kilometers.
Minutes later, as the New Shepard crossed the internationally recognized boundary of space, he became the oldest person in the world to float there, weightless. And the actor who for decades played an iconic space explorer became one.
And capsule touchdown. Welcome back, the newest astronauts.
He emerged from the capsule visibly moved by the adventure he said he hopes he never recovers from. Firmly back on planet Earth, he told me the beauty of what he'd seen was more profound than any words he could find or world record he'd broken.
Well, I wish I had broken the world record in the 10-yard dash, the 100-yard dash, but unfortunately it was how old I am.
Would you do it again, though?
I am so filled with such an emotion and such a feeling of a novel experience, I don't want to dissipate by thinking of another journey.
Thank you so much.
There may be debate about whether he can be called an astronaut, but he has gone where no nonagenarian has gone before. Sophie Long, BBC News, Blue Origin Launchpad 1.
And that's it from us now, BBC One. It's time for the news where you are. Have a good night.